Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of People of Clubhouse. My guest today is doing a unique job of healing, particularly for men, which is something not too many people do. Most people would focus probably on women and children. But here is a man who decided to heal the broken and hurt little boy inside of grown men. Jean Izze, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time that we have to spend together to just talk a little bit about what I do and the people that I work with.
Fantastic. I would actually want to know why exactly that field to begin with, and then we will talk about the details of what exactly you do to heal those people.
Perfect. So I work with adult men who have been sexually abused as children, right? So I'm working with men who have a really difficult time dealing with being betrayed, dealing with shame, dealing with self-doubt, trying to tame their ego, right? Dealing with societal pressures that dictate to them how a man should be in the world, and understanding that that person might not be that person that they're referring to. So how do we deal with that? How do we regain self-esteem? How do I go into helpful relationships, strong relationships, understanding my adult behaviors, and really understanding what makes me tick, right? What are the motivations behind my adult behaviors? All of those things so that we can work on empowering ourselves to reclaim our life.
And what we're saying here is that unresolved childhood trauma affects who you are as an adult and affects your relationships, correct?
That is correct.
How do you think, or
It
how?
can.
I'm sorry, say again?
It can have a huge impact on our adult relationships and our adult behaviors. Absolutely.
So when it comes to love relationships, because that I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to hear what happens when a child has been abused, never spoke about it, buried that trauma deep within themselves, ignored it, denied it, and then grew up, became a young man, and then fell in love or tried to fall in love. What kind of relationship problems might they have because of that trauma?
So a lot of people can carry different aspects of the abuse with them into adulthood. Depending on the type of abuse and the severity of the abuse can have an impact on their relationship building techniques, what they see in a relationship. They might be looking for things in a relationship that would want to heal themselves from a broken past, and therefore get into a relationship that is based on a healing, loving relationship than something that is needed or something that is desired from within, right? So
one of the things that they seek relationships where they take but not give, or is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
they would want somebody to mother
them
more or less. They would seek a woman who would, if we're talking about a man, so he would be seeking a woman who would mother him, for example, pamper him more than usual. Maybe not give him too much responsibility to do. Does he snap quicker than the average person?
Sure, it's searching for those unhealthy. It's searching for a healthy intimacy and an unhealthy intimacy encounter, right? So a lot of people will show examples of abuse in over sexualized lifestyle, right? So that they'll continually have unhealthy intimacy relationships to overstate the horrible relationship or the horrible sexual encounter that they had as a child, right? So they'll continually, almost like an addict would continually have sex so that they could find the right sex, right? Because because the sex that they experienced was so detrimental.
And they will never be satisfied in that sense. They will never be able to feel fulfilled and whole and complete in their intimacy as long as they haven't healed their inner trauma. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is, my other channel, John, deals with toxic relationships, particularly narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and recovery. And this is where we intersect, because what you're telling me here relates to a lot of what I explain to my audience in Arabic on my other channel, on what happens when children are subjected to difficult circumstances that may, affect how they grow up into unhealthy adults. And so their relationships will be damaged. Their attachment style, the way they might seek to control others because they are unable to control their inner environment. And so what you're doing is great. Tell me some success stories. Can you give us examples of before and after so people can get a grasp of exactly what you're doing?
Sure. So I would love to, actually. So I want to be clear that I don't deal with therapeutic trauma.
Okay.
I don't deal with going into someone's past and trying to heal the past hurts, right? That a therapist or a psychologist might do. What I like to work with is, how are we on the here and now, right? How am I living my life today
Grounding
to my
people
best
in
ability?
reality. Yeah.
And that's the difference for me when it comes to coaching and when it comes to seeking therapy. There are some people that have been abused that need therapy, right? That have to have that understanding and go back in time to really reclaim that child within. But that can also happen through coaching. And one of the examples of that is, I was working with a 50-year-old man who was just living in all of his behaviors were troublesome. He lied about how he felt. He snapped for no reason. He was very promiscuous. He was always right. Different patterns that are common stories among people who've been abused. And working with him on how he deals with the day-to-day situations in his life allowed him to understand what motivates him in doing the behaviors that he's doing today. And when we looked at those motivations, we were able to discover this little boy that he hid away when he was 10, 11 years old. And then giving him time to embrace that child 38 years ago, right? To embrace that child again and then begin to live his life as a person who recognizes the scar or recognizes the child that was stuck and brings him along to where he is today. And it's just a journey, right? It's that journey of, here's somebody that I have hidden away all my life, and now I'm going to grab onto his hand, and I'm going to take him on a journey to where I am today. And it was a beautiful moment. There was a lot of tears, but it was a moment that he very much needed. And he did that without counseling. So he did that with just discovering, his motivations behind his behaviors, which can be extremely powerful if you're open to it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if they're hidden away and you have never explored them, so they're like a black box you've never tapped into.
Yeah.
And they just blow up in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, I always, a friend of mine challenges me when I say it's like living behind a veneer. And when she thinks of the word veneer, she thinks of blinds where you can't see out. I think of a veneer as something a little bit more sheer. It's like the little boy that was abused is there, and he's looking out of this clouded, sheer veneer, and he can see the world going on around him, but he's afraid to take a step into it. And what this man had done, and what many of my clients do, is they go back into the sheer and pull the child out and
so that they can look
into the light, and so they can look and see how their life has changed.
Amazing.
And focus on the good things that they're doing, right? And the good decisions that they're making, and the healthy situations that they're in. And a lot of them will feel disconnected. How are you feeling connected? And let's talk about being connected. Let's talk about being heard. Let's talk about living in the present, right? Let's talk about, it's not that my health has declined. Let's see how I can get my health back on track. What is it about my body? What's my body telling me?
How difficult is it to work with men versus any other clients, since you've particularly picked men? For example, in my part of the world, I would imagine that men would feel too pressured to act the man, the macho, strong
Right.
forever, never vulnerable kind of man. And so they would never want to break down and cry, for example. They would never want to admit that they were at one point in time controlled and manipulated and hurt and this kind of thing. So is this what you are also dealing with? Do you have the same problems?
Yeah. So it's the men that I work with who don't feel like men. Right. So we talk about that.
Okay.
We talk about the ego. We talk about taming the ego. We talk about approaching things from a more compassionate and more empathetic, state. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of feeling like you're not a man, what does being a man mean to you?
Exactly.
Forget about what society places on us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what that means for you. And a lot of people will say, well, men don't cry. Men cry a lot.
Of course.
They
Yeah.
just might
Mm-hmm.
not cry in the open
Mm-hmm.
around you, but they do cry. So what does it mean to them when they cry? And a lot of people say, well, I was abused, so I'm not a real man. Well, what does a real man mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to ask those questions that nobody has asked them, and they haven't asked themselves, then you begin to open up a story that has never been told before.
Amazing.
And then they can parallel their life as a man to the lives of other men. And then it becomes something that they can see, they can touch, their senses can relate to.
And it also takes a lot
And
of bravery to be able to admit you were broken as a man. I think
huge,
they are very brave to be able
huge,
to do that.
very brave. And to see that struggle and to see I always tell my clients, this is a very difficult moment, but look at just the fact that you made that phone call, or just the fact that you reached out to say hello,
Mm-hmm.
is a huge step for a lot of people. And this goes whether it's male or female or whatever trauma someone experiences in life, right?
Yeah.
It's taking that step and saying, I might not be ready, but I'm here. So what can we do since I'm here? And that's the approach I take. It's, one of the things that I have always said in my life, ever since I can remember as a child, even thinking this way, was always accepting people for where they are in life, not where you think they should be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And when we
Over
do that,
expectations is damaging. And yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, oh my gosh, the world is open.
Exactly.
There's so many avenues to success.
And so
When
amazingly,
we
if
do
now
that.
we are, let's say we have thousands of people listening to you and me now. Uh, what would you want people to contact you about? I'm going to be putting links to your contacts in the description of this video. Men and women who are listening to us now would want to contact you. What would you want them to offer you, volunteer to do, help you with, cooperate with you on, and what can you offer them?
So basically, I am a coach, and I coach, adult men who have been abused as a child, right? So I'm working with people to help reclaim their life. They can feel empowered to do that. Worry less about being betrayed and empowered to reclaim your life. That's my line.
Mm-hmm.
I do that by different, offerings. Sometimes, it's been really difficult this past year with COVID because
Exactly.
people's financial situations are, have been attacked basically because of being out of work. So I've been doing some free work, right, where I, just getting people to talk. I opened up a Facebook group for men who have been abused, and it's a private Facebook group, so they
Mm-hmm.
can reach me on the private Facebook group. It's called Beyond Betrayal,
We will put the
and
link in the video so people can find you
yeah,
easier. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's called Beyond Betrayal. And then my website, which is johnizzy.com,
Mm-hmm.
and I do Beyond Betrayal coaching. I'll do other types of coaching with men, women, and youth. I am trying right now to get a group, a men's circle together, so that we can begin to open up the discussion about being an adult man and being abused, and how do you talk about that with a group of people?
Amazing.
So it helps you be able to tell your story in a way which is in a way which is healthy and not something that is going to take you further down,
Amazing,
a
and
path
this
of.
is fantastic. And on my part, some of my other guests are probably very relevant to your work. So I'm going to be I'm going to be putting you in contact with them after we finish recording. So maybe you can collaborate as well. John, it's been
That
fantastic
would be
having
great.
you. Thank you. Fantastic having you with us today. You're welcome back to expand more in the future about your successful work. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Sahar, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
You too. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. I'm Sahar and I'm done speaking.